One Piece chapter 1161 is finally here, and it is a phenomenal chapter. Not really surprising in regards to the fact that, we are finally in the God Valley incident, and things are moving, the plot is moving, we have characters interacting and questions being answered that we've had for a very long time. So I'm not going to yap on too long here in this intro, and we're just going to get right into this chapter because there is a lot to be discussed. So the chapter opens up, of course, on God Valley. And of course, we have the celestial dragons being ushered off of the island, or trying to usher them towards a safe location on the island. So we have these Marines here that are asking them to please go and head down the evacuation route. And, they're just trying to do their duty, do their job. And of course, you have the celestial dragons complaining, griping, telling them that, of course, they'll take responsibility for everything that's happened here. So these are those moments that, for the average Marine, I understand they are somewhat complicit in what is occurring here, because they're technically following and obeying orders, even though what the celestial dragons are doing is absolutely abhorrent, and they're not fighting against it as we see Dragon doing. But on the whole, most of them they're not bad guys. They are people who truly just wanted to help the general public on a day-to-day basis. They just so happen to be wrapped up in the bureaucracy of the world government, and they have to tend to these absolutely atrocious people at the very top. And it's just a sad fate of the members of the Marines, unless you are exceptionally powerful and you can somewhat push back, as we have seen the best example of being Monkey D. Garp. But not everyone can do that. Not every normal, Marine is capable of fighting back against this giant system. So I just always feel bad when these normal Marines are just getting berated by the people that they're trying to actively help do terrible things. And they still have the audacity, of course, because they view themselves as gods amongst the people. And we get a panel of the residents of God Valley, with all the targets on them. They are basically bringing up the fact that this chaos that is ensuing on the island might be able to give them a chance of escape. So let this huge, crazy situation unfold, and while everyone is kind of distracted, we'll hop on like a ship or a boat and get away. Which, honestly, that's exactly what I would be thinking in that scenario too. So good for these people. We get a triple panel of three of our, top legends here. We got Roger wanting to know where Shaki is. We have Rox thinking to himself internally. He's thinking, Eris, Teach, where are you? So now we have a confirmed name for Rox's wife / Blackbeard's mother. Eris, we don't get much beyond that, but he's obviously very concerned with where they are, because we know that Rox has the resolve from when he spoke to Harold. He even made it abundantly clear that he doesn't feel like luck is still on his side, but he feels like fate is pulling him to this island. So the only thing that matters to him in this situation is that his wife and his son get off the island safely. Which, if I was a betting man and I had to gamble on, whether Teach's mom makes it off the island, considering that it's One Piece and mothers unfortunately are either non-existent or they just have terrible things happen to them. I would have to bet that she does not make it off of this island, especially considering when we saw those drawings that Oda did of a lot of the characters when they were children. We see a younger Teach under the moonlight, and he looks like he's just wearing raggedy clothes, and he seems to be alone. So that would lead me to believe that she does not leave this island. And he basically is an orphan, because this is presumably where Rox also meets his end. So it's a pretty tragic situation. Of course, we have Garp. The only thing he cares about is Roger. That is the only reason that he is at this island right now. I know I've seen some people online, just saying that Garp is complicit and he is basically helping the Celestial Dragons continue this terrible, tournament that they hold, and he's protecting the Celestial Dragons. And I think Oda has made it very clear that that is not the case. It may be a consequence of his actions, but he is not explicitly there to help the Celestial Dragons or even any members of the world government. He is there specifically for Roger and to help his fellow Marines. Garp is extremely loyal to his fellow Navy men. And we have a lot of Navy men on this island who are currently being slaughtered by the pirates that have shown up to capture or get Shaki back. So Garp, when we had the previous flashback, before the incident began, I believe it was during Kuma's flashback, when Kong was asking Garp to go to God Valley, Garp was like, oh, the Celestial Dragon's little field trip? Like, no thanks. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. He thinks the Tenryubito are scum. So he's like, no, I'm not going anywhere near that place. But then, of course, when he hears that Roger is on his way there, it's an instant 180 and it's on site. He's ready to go. So that's the only reason he's here. He even asks, like, where did Roger go? That's what he cares about. Roger is his rival. He goes where Roger goes, and in the process, he is saving other Marines' lives. He is not trying to protect the Celestial Dragons. That just may be a consequence of his actions, but not the actual pursuit. And then we cut away from those three and we get to see Dragon. He's kind of got like a hood up over and like a cloak, and he's running through the woods. He's carrying both babies. He's got Shamrock and Shanks in his arms, and he's wondering where the Navy ships are, and he's running into more pirates. And then we have one of the God Knights, what appears to be somewhat of a fishman, like some sort of hybrid person, the one with the teeth and the sunglasses and the horns. And she finds Dragon and shoots literally some sort of beam out of her mouth. So I'm assuming this has something to do with her devil fruit, because it looks like it's some sort of fire breath, but it's like very concentrated, like a laser. Very interesting. Not exactly sure what that is, but it shoots through Dragon's like upper right shoulder, and he goes down, drops, we find out, drops Shamrock to the side, and Shanks actually stumbled more forward in front of Dragon. And so this God Knight is Saint Maffy, or Mafy, and they are part of the Satchels family. Now, I thought, based off of the design I mentioned last chapter deep dive, that I thought maybe this individual could possibly be Saint Killingham's mother, because the teeth, the hair, like the design in the face looked kind of similar when we saw Killingham's hybrid form, and we could actually see what his face looked like. But I went back and looked, and Killingham is part of the Rimu Shifu family, and now we know for a fact that this Mafi God Knight is from the Satchel's family. So that would lead me to believe that that is actually not the case for Killingham. But there is someone talking on the Denden Mushi to Mafi and saying, like, you're a lifesaver, Garling would have killed me. So I don't know who this person is that they're talking to, but clearly they were most likely in charge or given an order from Garling to retrieve his children once the chaos, ensued. And obviously they had been taken by Dragon. So whoever this person is enlisted the help of Mafi, one of the God Knights. And she picks up a little Shamrock, and, he's just crying, obviously, as any baby would in this situation. And, she just makes a statement of how the fact that, like, who would have thought that a prick like Garling would have a kid? That's almost as strange as the kidnapper, who is Dragon in this situation. And it's just funny to see that Garling, even amongst his own people, is still considered a prick. And I mean, he seems like it. The dude he basically operates as an emotionless robot, but with more of he has a sense of superiority that clearly has just been instilled in him since birth, and that has remained as a core part of his being his entire life. And it really didn't seem to change all the way up into his old age now that he's joined the Gorosei. So if anything, it probably has gotten worse. But we have Dragon on the ground, obviously bleeding. He's, can't even move. And he is, wanting to get these babies off of the island, and because they're his only chance to atone for helping set up this whole murder game that's going on the island. He is looking at this opportunity as his atonement. And if he can't get these babies off the island, then, he might as well die, because she goes to stab him, and all he can think to himself is, pretty much, this is what I deserve. Like, I'm here in this terrible place, helping technically these terrible people commit an atrocity. And I was attempting to atone for it by getting these babies off the island. And if I fail at that, then basically that retracts my right to live. I don't deserve to live anymore. So he basically resigned himself to his fate. But then we have a massive cut, slice down all these trees and just cut St. Mafi in half. And obviously we know at least what we believe to be the truth is that all of the God Knights have their regeneration. So this isn't, when I saw this initially, I was like, it's cool, but she's going to regenerate, be totally fine, and just keep it pushing. But it at least gave Dragon the moment to get away. But we don't continue with Dragon. We actually cut to see who is the one that cleared the forest, basically. And it was our boy, Edward Newgato. And he and Big Mom are just arguing because apparently Newgate chopped down the whole forest. And he's telling Big Mom, apparently they've been having this discussion, or maybe this has been occurring as they've been on the island. But Big Mom feels that Whitebeard has been basically targeting her with attacks. But Whitebeard was like, I'm not aiming at you. I'm aiming at the enemy. And Big Mom is just, she doesn't believe it. She's calling him a liar. That, she could have died. And she's just like, you want to go right now or something? And it's just really funny to see these two interact. Mainly any of the Rocks pirates interact, but just seeing these younger versions of the Yonko that we see in the current timeline, just seeing them just in this absolutely chaotic situation, and they're still like cats and dogs. They can't get along, and they're constantly just at each other's throats. But Dragon is right there as they're passing through, and he's down on the ground near a tree, and he's like, wow, these pirates are huge, which yes, they are. Whitebeard having some Buccaneer blood in him makes him huge. And then Big Mom, we never really got an answer as to why she is humongous, but she is ginormous. So he's right. These people are massive, and it makes no sense. But then the time has come for us to have basically a Rocks Pirates showcase here for a moment, because Shiki rolls in, Kaido rolls in, and Shiki's like, you trying to kill me too, Newgate? And this is where Kaido actually says to Lin Lin, like, this isn't what we agreed on. And I'm assuming what he's inferring, because we know before they made landfall, Kaido told Big Mom, like, you're gonna, because he knows she's going for the devil fruits. And he was basically like, hey, you're gonna like give me one of those. You're gonna hook me up with one of those devil fruits, right? So I'm assuming once they made landfall, basically Big Mom just probably left him in the dust. And that's why he's like, this isn't what we agreed on, because like we were supposed to probably go together to go find these devil fruits so I could actually eat one of them. And we get an awesome panel of all of these, fodder pirates, of course, thinking that they can take out the Rocks pirates and they'll be famous if they do. Gotta always love these NPC dum-dums who, for some reason, believe that they themselves are the main character. And they're just scrubs, because of course we get an awesome panel of all four of them, Shiki, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Lin Lin, all doing their own attacks, just cutting down all of these scrubs, sending them packing. And we still have Maffy here. Saint Maffy has a hold of Shamrock, still has the baby. For some reason, they only believed one baby, so I don't know if Garling had not specified that they were twins. There is two children. For some reason, Maffy and the person that they are talking to are under the impression that it is just one child. So Dragon is thinking to himself like that he could probably slip away right now, but he doesn't have the babies. But then that's where he actually sees in front of him an unconscious, knocked out Shanks. Shanks is unconscious. He's got the X's over his eyes. Poor little guy. He's got like a goose egg on his head from falling. But the fact Dragon found him, and because he is unconscious, he's technically being quiet right now. He's not crying. He's not drawing attention to him. So here's Dragon's opportunity. But before we get a continuation of that, we hit, after the explosion happened from the four-way attack of all of the Rocks pirates, we get to see Garp running in from behind, and he's like, well, now this is a big catch. And he's like, I found a prime fishing spot, which I love Garp's attitude. But he comes in, charges up the hockey in his fist, and he comes down from the top rope. Boom. Not a named attack, so it's not like this isn't like Galaxy Impact or Galaxy Divide or anything like that, but just a normal, it seems to be a Conqueror's Hockey infused punch from Garp of all people. So this is not normal. And Garp says like, brace yourselves, you big old sea kings. So he views it, he really is the dude who views all pirates as fair game for him to hunt. He views them all as creatures that he can just track down and try to take down like he's hunting big game. And I love that attitude. But they start hoofing it. I don't know where Shiki went because all we see is Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard. But they basically are like, run, like it's Garp. If we fight him, it'll drag on for far too long, which is very true. Kaido's like, we ain't gonna fight back at all. And Big Mom's just like, can it? She summons both Zeus and Prometheus. And this is where we actually get a little panel of Dragon reacting. And he's like, Dad, like he did not, I'm thinking about this from Dragon's perspective. He's going through this absolutely traumatic and chaotic situation that on this island that he probably had no idea was about to happen. And then he gets to see these ridiculous pirates. And then all of a sudden his dad just shows up to wreak even more havoc. And, you know, we don't know yet what the relationship was like between Dragon and Garp. Seeing as how Garp is to, you know, the characters we get to see later on when it comes to trying to force them down the path of the Marines and the Navy, I'm assuming it was a very similar situation with Dragon, and that's where he basically pushed him down that path, and Dragon actually followed and he listened to it. But we don't really know too much about their dynamic, and like, did they argue very much? Did they butt heads prior to Dragon leaving the inevitable, you know, split between him and the Navy and pursuing his own path in life? Like, were they actually on good terms? Or had Dragon always felt like he didn't get a choice in his path in life and maybe had some sort of resentment towards Garp? We don't know, but it's just really cool to get to see Dragon seeing his father in action. Because up to this point, we have no idea if Dragon has actually ever seen Garp in his glory, like out hunting pirates. And this may be his first time actually experiencing it firsthand. So it is a crazy situation. But Big Mom prepares her attack. Heavenly Fever, is it Fever or Fear Blitz? I don't know. Sometimes she uses some sort of like French in the names of her attacks, but she combines Prometheus and Zeus. So it's a lightning fire blast that just consumes Garp. And of course we have Garp's like Marine fleet guys with him, and they're all like, Vice Admiral Garp, you know, even though they should know better that this is not going to take him out. But of course, you know, they're worried for their dude. You know, he's the hero. Well, he's not officially recognized as the hero of the Marines yet, because this incident is what gains him that title. So, but clearly he's still renowned amongst the Navy even before he gained that official title. We get to see an explosion, and from the distance, we get to see Ivankov and a young Kumachi, and they are like, whoa, what is that? Like, but this is our chance. It's the same with the residents. When they saw all this chaos, these explosions, everything, they're like, this is our chance to capitalize, to get out of here. And it's the same for them. And this may be this may be him saying, Ivankov saying, this is our chance to go retrieve those devil fruits. Because we know that Lin is the one who actually captures Ivankov and gets the dragon fruit, but before she could get the pawpaw fruit, Kuma eats it. So I'm assuming this is prior to that. But this is where we get, in my humble opinion, we get the best panel of the chapter, and we get to see Garp absolutely aura to the max. This dude is aura farming super hard, but it is probably one of my favorite, it's for sure my favorite single panel of Garp in the entire series. And it may just be one of my favorite panels of a character regardless, like in the entire series, not just Garp himself. But we get to see him, he's all shaded out in black, but you get to just see the smile in white and his eyes glowing. He's got what looks to be like Conqueror's Haki kind of streaming off of him. Clearly has suffered basically no damage because he uses this moment to, you know, just talk his crap to Lin Lin. And he's like, this isn't even hot enough to cook a prime rib, Lin Lin. Like, and this is an attack from, yes, not prime Big Mom, like at the peak of her strength, but still exceptionally powerful. And he just ate a combo attack from Zeus and Prometheus to the face, and it did basically nothing. And Big Mom drops the, at least in the TCB translation, she drops the F-bomb. I mean, fair point. You just hit this dude point blank with seemingly is a named big attack, and this guy just spat it back in your face. He just roasted you for trying to roast him, but he just did it with his words, and he's totally fine. So they just are still running. We cut away back to Saint Maffey, who is still holding Shamrock and, you know, assumes that the kidnapper, Dragon, is probably dead, which is, you know, actually a safe assumption with just the chaos that's rolling through there. But she's like, I've secured the baby. That's good enough, right? See, the baby, singular, not plural. And whoever this person is talking to her is like, they're like, I'm forever in your debt. Now please get back here before Garling finds out. So finds out that they were even kidnapped in the first place. So that's why I'm thinking it's some sort of attendant that was tasked with retrieving the children, like with the baby, even though he knows that he had twins, because he spoke to their mother prior to the tourney happening. So I think there was probably just a miscommunication in the turmoil and the chaos, and that actually ended up working out well for, well, at least Shanks, from the luck of the draw, because it could have been either Shanks or Shamrock in that situation. And we get to see Dragon all beat up, but he's running out with Shanks. He's apologizing that he can't help his brother, but he swears to at least save him, which, you know, Dragon is being an absolute trooper, and I just respect him and the ability to follow through with his convictions in this crazy scenario. It's building my respect for Dragon, and I think a lot of us have all been waiting to see Dragon actually do things, because I think when he truly enters the story, like in the current timeline, and it's his time, I think a lot of people's tunes are going to change, because I've got Dragon, like current Dragon, if we're going to bring up just like a little bit of power scaling here, he's way up there on my list. So, and it's fine if you disagree with that, but, you know, I'm willing to hold on to those stocks, and I think they're going to pay off in the future. But we cut away to one of the God Knights. It was we never got her name, but it's the chick with the rifle and the big old like mushroom looking hat. I believe from the Manmeyer family, which is the same family as Gunko, because she was the one that was saying since Gunko was there, they had a chance to take the clan trophy in the competition. And she's just shooting down civilians that believed that they could escape during the chaos. And, you know, none of these people look cool to me doing these things. So even if they are somewhat strong, I don't like them, and I would like to see them all get taken out. So we get to see a little map of the island and the direction in which they are trying to corral the celestial dragons. We have Roger coming in from the northwest, because we have God Valley. Obviously, the two mountain peaks go up, and then there's a valley in between. And so we have Rox coming in from the southeast, Roger coming in from the northwest, and they are trying to push these celestial dragons out of the middle to the side that would be to the east, just straight out east. Because they've been sandwiched in between, the Rox pirates and the Roger pirates. But we have just an absolute chaotic scene for the Marines that are sandwiched in the valley. And everyone's just looking for Shockey. They are, obviously completely outgunned, outmatched. They were not prepared for this. But we get to see a bunch of the Rox pirates. We have Ganzui, we have Gloriosa, Kyo, Shiki, and Captain John. And I noticed in this panel, and I would love to hear from somebody else in the comments below, but in this panel with Captain John, one of his arms looks like a giant metal hand, which looks extremely reminiscent and very similar to one Captain Eustace Kidd. So was Captain John the wielder of the magnet fruit prior to Kidd? Because that's at least what it seems like to me, which is very interesting because Big Mom fights Kidd in Wano, and he has that devil fruit, and she doesn't make a comment on it, even though she was in the same crew as Captain John. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. You guys let me know down below what your thoughts are for Captain John and if he has that devil fruit. But then we get to see Saint Summers walking through the town, basically like asking if they've moved Shockey yet. And they have not been able to move Shockey, even though she's been chained up. There are just Marines strewn about the ground. She's basically been beating them up as they've tried to come and move her. And, she is just keeping her cool, standing up for herself. And Saint Summers is having none of that. He is saying how distasteful, and there's nothing less cute than a woman who knows their worth, which just speaks on how small of a man he is. I wouldn't even categorize him as a man because you want, you would want to be with a woman who knows their worth, and you are complimentary to her, not she needs to be subservient and think she is so far beneath you that you can just lord over her. So that's just, he's a terrible person, obviously, as all of the celestial dragons are. But Shockey fights back. She's fighting back a bit against him, even though she's chained up. But ultimately, Summers gets the better of her, and he is basically like, well, regardless of the pirates being here, Garling is just gonna, if you survive this whole situation, Garling is ultimately just gonna claim you as his, and everyone else kind of just loses. So maybe, I should basically just get rid of you so then nobody can have you, and that would be much more interesting, because we know he loves to play around with emotions, and he thinks gestures of love and affection should be used against people in times of need to try to manipulate their actions into doing things that ultimately harm them. So he wants to manipulate this situation to hurt as many people as possible, and that would be getting rid of Shockey because they just fought so hard to come and retrieve her. We get to see that the Rox pirates are fighting outside, creating havoc, and Roger shows up, and we get a clash between Roger and Whitebeard. They're just locked in. It's reminiscent, of them clashing on that one island during the Odin flashback. So it's cool to see this. This is years prior, whereas both of them are not yet in their prime. This is still a little bit too early, in my opinion. I believe basically Rox is the one who is in his prime, and I think everybody else is not there yet. That doesn't mean they're too far off from it, because they're all exceptionally powerful. But Garp, Roger, Whitebeard, Linlin, obviously Kaido, he's very young at this time. Even Rayleigh, they're not, because this is Rox's era. This is his time to shine. This is when he probably holds the title of the strongest pirate in the world. At least I would agree with that sentiment. If I had to probably, because I do enjoy power scaling. I don't want to get so caught up in it and get caught up in agendas. But if I had to, at least currently on the island, if I had to give a top 5, I would say Rox is number 1. Then I would actually go as far to say I think Garp is number 2 at this time. Then I have Roger and Whitebeard as basically equal for 3 and 4. And then it would either be Rayleigh or Big Mom would probably fill that, or Shiki. Rayleigh, Shiki, or Big Mom would probably fill that 5 spot. So this is, like I said, this is Rox's flashback. Even though we have all of these epic characters and these legends present, this is for Rox. The time for Rogers, because I know I've seen some, I'm not online too much, even though I make YouTube videos. And I know that there's a sentiment that this flashback has made Rox just look so far superior to especially Roger. But it's this is Rox's flashback. This is not Roger's flashback. Roger is here and he's still a younger pirate, and it's not yet his era. It's really not his era until he sets sail for his second journey after they make it to the final island of Lodestar, and they find out that they need the road poneglyphs to reach Laugh-Tale. So that is, even though Roger, ends up gaining his sickness, I believe that is the closest to Prime Roger that we get in his journey. But I digress. We get to see the explosion from them clashing, and all the pirates are talking about how they're going to go save her. But then we have Roger speaking to someone who we know is Rayleigh, and he's like, my hands are tied right now. I'll leave Shaki to you. And we got Rayleigh, just no words spoken, just jumping into action. Summers is getting ready to get rid of Shaki, and we get Rayleigh all shadowed out, coming in from behind, saying that he's going to send Summers to the darkest shadows of the underworld, which is a sick line, considering also that Rayleigh is the Dark King. So I love that it's playing into his theme. And then we get a named attack from Silver's Rayleigh, and it's the Transcendent Higan Crescent, which I believe in the translator's note says that the kanji, it has something to do with enlightenment as a Buddhist holiday, something about transcendence. And so there's some meaning in there. This is where I wish that I knew kanji and I understood everything around Japanese culture, but I don't. But regardless, we get a named attack from Rayleigh. He sends Summers packing through the wall, and he, or it's translated as Red Spider Lily. I'm not sure. We'll see, obviously, later on. in the anime what they decide to go with for the name as well, or the official chapter release tomorrow. So I'll read that tomorrow and get the official translation for his attack. But he sheaths his sword, looking like a boss, and tells Shaki that he is sorry for the delay, but he is here for her. And of course, Shaki begins to cry and tells him that he's late. And even Rayleigh begins to tear up as well and says that he's sorry for letting it come to this. And they're having this beautiful moment, and we get this hilarious panel of both Roger and Gabon outside the room, and they're just like, heartbroken, they're crying, but they're yelling like, "Save it for later, you dog," because they're jealous, but also at the same time, they're obviously probably very happy for not only the fact that they've saved Shaki, because they all liked her, but also probably for their crewmate, their friend, Rayleigh. And they basically are like, "We've got Shaki, grab the treasure, we're running for it, we're booking it out." And that is where the chapter ends. So obviously, I don't think it's going to be as smooth as that, as just, yep, grab the treasure and we're just going to run off the island and everything's going to be cool. It's like, no, we know at some point, apparently according to Sengoku, that Garp and Roger team up against the Rocks Pirates. But again, we don't know if that is actually what even is going to happen, or if that is just part of the cover-up story for the whole situation. We don't really know, but I am loving this flashback. God Valley is finally well underway, and I am deeply looking forward to the further developments that we get to see, and especially when it comes to Rocks and his conclusion as a character, and how it plays into Teach and setting him on a certain path. So that is going to be all from me. I appreciate anybody who has made it to this point in the video. And if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will catch you guys in the next One Piece chapter. Hope you have a great night or day wherever you are. Peace.